Hey guys, welcome back to another video. I've been on a break or hiatus, and right before I left, I had received a voicemail off of my website. If you go to my website, there's a dialogue box to actually leave an audio recording. And this gentleman was asking a question which I think a lot of people struggle with throughout all this, and that is the anger. And to summarize really what the question was is like, how do you deal with the anger associated with the never-ending games? In his particular situation, it was it has been so far a 5-year litigation with appeals and countersuits and just, ongoing. And this is one of those things I absolutely can relate with. And I think one of the things, maybe as men, we're problem solvers. There's a problem, you find a solution, you work through it. But in family court, what you quickly realize is there's no easy solution to this. And every day ends up being a reminder of what you're dealing with and the unfairness of it and the fact that you're kind of trapped. I often used to think of this like I was, strapped to a drowning person and I just couldn't get away from them. Their cone of destruction and chaos has no bounds. And this is different than anything else you've been through. And one of the things I found for me is it fundamentally started what's the word I'm looking for? A shift in my perspective, honestly, on everything in life. And what I mean is as I was going through this, all the things in the past and I didn't necessarily realize this at the time, but all the things in the past that would stress me out, that would get me upset, that would get me frustrated, I started to realize in comparison, they didn't mean anything. They were insignificant with what I was dealing with at the time. When you start going through this and you realize that the system isn't designed for fairness, the system isn't designed for justice, and you realize that this person has a unique control upon your life, it can really push you to some dark places. And I think anger is one of the first destinations on that trip. When I was going through this, and I didn't deal with a bunch of litigation. Basically, I guess technically there was some, right? And we had the initial court crap. And then a few years later, I ended up suing the ex for doing this really cool thing of not paying bills and then sending it to collection and then telling the collection people, well, his job, he has to pay, so go talk to him because he has money, right? I mean, it was just an FU thing. And it worked for a while. Then I sued her in small claims court, and I thought, hey, I got a victory. And then she made a move, and I had to basically have a whole nother divorce, not as long as the original one, but just to deal with the retirement stuff. And the thing is that every one of us, and I'm sure, just, comment on this down below how your story played out. But I think every one of us, we go on a full frontal attack. We try to play within the bounds of the system to try to have some justice, to try to get some fairness or consequences even. Because I'm sure in most of our minds, that's where we feel like that is how things will change, is if the ex experiences some sort of catastrophic consequence as a result of their actions. Now, the reality is, and what's really frustrating, is typically they don't have many consequences. Typically, they're able to, one of two things happens. Either they have the resources or they win just enough to where they feel like the whole game is a victory. Or what's really sad is whenever, and then we have a few people on the channel who've told me about their stories where they fought the fight and the ex, the ex feels a consequence at the end when they basically destroy everything. All their money's gone, all their resources are gone, and they are also left bankrupt. And part of the problem is a lot of times these people, for whatever reason, don't understand that. They think that you have an endless pile of money and that they will always have access to it, and it's the never-ending checkbook. So they just keep going. So I know that's kind of like I think where most of us come to this or come from this, and it generates a ton of anger. And I was absolutely in that boat for a significant period of time. I just could not get over it. Everything pissed me off. Excuse me. Everything was a reminder of the destruction of everything that I'd worked decades for. And the interesting part about it is at the time, I'm like, how am I ever going to get over this anger? I am so mad and irritated at this person that they basically lied to me, tricked me, sold me a false narrative, a false story. And when I realized that I'd been used for 2 decades, it really pissed me off. And initially I'm like, all right, this is over. This person isn't going to be able to do this anymore. Sorry about being flummy. And what quickly became apparent, because I figured, okay, this person's going to have to go out, deal with the real world, and they're not going to get to leverage off of all my hard work anymore. Now, I don't know if the person who made this, if this is kind of the crux of what their thing is, but just follow me for a moment. But what ended up happening is the family court system said, oh, no. You are going to continue to basically let this person be retired on you for the unforeseeable future. I'm not saying that correctly, but for a significant period of time, nothing's going to change, and it didn't. And that was a daily reminder. Every day I got up and I looked at my bank account and I had $0 and I had no credit. My credit rating went to crap because she walked away from the house and I really tried to make it to where we both could just kind of separate and like, look, we have no bills. Everything's good. We're starting at a very, level playing field. And it was like, oh, hell no. No, you're not going to, no, you don't get to do that. I'm going to destroy you and take everything I possibly can. And she did. And then through family court, like I just said, it was basically, dang, gavel down. And, you will continue to pay her an absorbent amount of money. Basically enough money for her to live, rent a house, buy a car, and not hit a lick for 8 years. It wasn't until our middle child, I have 3 kids, dropped off to where the monies wasn't enough to pay for everything, and she finally had to get a job. And then even then, it's like I've mentioned before, I haven't. So here's the thing. Even when that happened, I didn't go back and fight for a reduction. And that's because I got a handle on my anger. And the reality is, and this is what happened with me. when I was dealing with that reality, that constant reminder, even I remember at one point, it's just stupid stuff like not even being able to get a tire for my car, my truck, so I could get back forth to work, so I could actually make my money to pay her. It was one of those things where every day I was angry. Somebody would say something, and I would have a flare up. I would have an emotional, a visceral emotional response. Okay, so let me get to the point of this. You are going to have to come to terms with that, because it will destroy you if you do not get a handle on it. And there were two things that helped me in this process. One, first phase of this was to channel that anger to keep me motivated to not quit or to not give up or to not take myself out, so to speak, or any of those things. Because I knew that that's exactly what she wanted. And the only thing I was able to do in my mind at that time to fight, to show some type of defiance, was to say, I am not going to give you that. You are not going to break me. And I have a lot of old videos in the early days where I would talk about that mindset. And it was really important because and it didn't always work, but that's what kept me going. Every day when I would get pissed, I would basically say to myself, this is going to get better. I'm going to be able to live my life. This person is going to run into a brick wall at some point in their life, and I'm going to make it through it. It's not today, it's not tomorrow, and it's probably going to be a long time down the road, but this is the path that I'm going to take, and that kept me going. Now, the problem with that, there's a couple things, is every time I had an opportunity to demonstrate to that glorious human being that I was doing okay, and this is what you'll notice with toxic narcissistic people. If they think that they're winning, they'll leave you alone. If they think that you're winning, they will F with you as much as they possibly can. And that's exactly what happened. Anytime I would do something to try to demonstrate, hey, my life is okay, the financial burden isn't great. Not great, but it's not as bad as it seems. Every result of me doing that was to set her off and to basically get her to try to find unique and more interesting ways to screw with my life, to screw with our kids' lives, to remind you, and this is what will happen with you, that they're still there. So the second part of this, channeling the anger, the second part was understanding that I had to break away from how she felt about the scenario. And what I mean is but in the early parts of this, the idea of letting her feel like she was winning was like, no, I can't do that. I can't let her have that feeling. I can't let her think that, she's affecting my life. Then I realized it doesn't matter. And it's a exercise in frustration, and I'm putting my energies in the wrong place. And I got to the point where I'm like, I don't give a crap what you think. If you think you're winning, great. If you think my life is horrible, great. If you think that I'm a bitter, angry, and this is the thing, this is the part that I really kind of appreciate, is as long as she thinks that I'm bitter, angry, and can't get over her, excuse me, she leaves me alone. I hope she doesn't ever watch this video, because that would, I don't want her to really understand that, Or maybe even if she did, maybe she would think, oh yeah, but you're sitting here talking about it right now, so you're not over it. So the second part is I basically hit emotional rock bottom. And I realized that if I did not let this go, truly let it go, that it would destroy me, that it would consume me 1,000%, and I would not be able to have any type of good life or peace from that. When I was able to do that, that fundamentally changed everything. And part of it, and I had a lot of early videos on this, but the short version is you have to look at it and say, okay, during the day, how much time do I spend ruminating, thinking, planning, dealing with the logistics and crap of everything with this person? Back in the day, that was a significant amount of time. It was probably almost all my waking hours. And I finally realized that if I just would take that amount of time and focus it on rebuilding my life, finding peace, that it would be better, I'd be better served from it. Now, the problem with that is it's one of those things that you have to get to that breaking point to where you're really able to let things go and focus on other things. And what I mean by this is if you're not ready, then just me saying that is going to be one of those things that kind of triggers you to be like, well, wait a minute, I can't, how can I do that? I mean, every day I wake up and I look at I can't put gas in my car because of this, or I've lost my retirement, or I've lost this, or I don't have time with the kids, or, this laundry list of things that you can look at and say, no, I can't let it go because of this. And I used to feel that way. When people would say, well, you got to let it go. I'm like, how the hell can I let it go? She's done this, she's done this, she's done this, she's lied about this, she's taken this, she's destroyed this. I mean, just this laundry list of things. But one day, after a few years, I woke up and I'm just like, I can't do this anymore. And that's the thing, is we all have to get to that breaking point to where we realize that this isn't serving me. This isn't helping me. This isn't helping my children. And this isn't helping me do anything to achieve my life. A lot of old videos I talk about rebaselining your life. That's where that comes from. Because at some point you just have to say, okay, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And when you get to that point, that's when things start to change. Now, the other thing with this person was talking about, litigation, everything. Guys, you have to pick your battles. In the beginning, we want to fight everything. We want that victory in court. And if we get it, if you're lucky enough to get it, there are some people who have been able to swing for the fences, and they nail it. They do great. And the victory is so great that it causes the person just to basically back down. And when that, if that happens, then that's outstanding. The reality is most of the time it doesn't. So you have to pick your battles. You can't fight everything. You really have to look at it. For instance, at the beginning of this video, I was talking about the fact that when she finally started to go to work, I'm entitled for a reduction in child support and alimony. But I haven't gone back for it because every time I hint at it, there's a ripple effects that affect the kids, and it affects my peace of mind. So I have a plan of what I'm intending to do, but I'm not going to do it now. I'm being more strategic and more thoughtful and more deliberate about what I'm doing. I've talked to so many people who get irritated for whatever reason, and they go back to court and they're trying to force something, and all it ends up doing is opening Pandora's box. Now, that's not to say that, don't ever go back to court. There are times where you have to fight that fight. You have to do something. Otherwise, it's just not I mean, it's a personal decision. I'll tell you this: if she had started working, if in my situation, if she had started working back when I was still angry, I would have taken her to court in a effing instant. If I could have spent $10 to save, to get 1 penny back, I absolutely would have done it. Here's the thing. We all have to go through the various phases and the various different emotions associated with this. What I would tell you is, if you're really stuck focusing on the anger, the thing you need to ask yourself is that doing anything positive for your life? Maybe at the beginning part of it, maybe it's keeping you motivated, maybe it's maybe it's helping you. It did help me for a bit, so don't get me wrong. But there comes a time, and like with this person asking the question, when you start realizing like, hey, this is negatively affecting my life, then you have to start working on finding ways to change your approach to it. And that is the key to starting to take your life back. And what's nice is whenever you realize that and you start to have some successes with that, you also realize that their control over you and the control over your mind starts to dissipate. And there's a lot of power in that too. So I hope this discussion was helpful. Person who left that, I was out of town for a few weeks and had the kids. I'm kind of in that period where I don't anymore. So if you guys have some other discussion points on this, let me know. And I will catch you on the next one.